Suburbia. Today I'm going to continue to expand on the portion of the starter points. Now, what I want to talk about really is to try to dig a little bit deeper into false ideas about starting points and like where to start. Now, a lot of people have this idea, and I've heard this, and I've also repeated this as almost if it were a mantra, involving where to start, how to start. A lot of motivational videos like to bubble you up to the point of erupting, right? Where you're just like, oh my God, now I'm fired up. Now I've got the momentum to get going. That's perfectly fine. The overall issues that people deal with when it comes to starter points or where you're going to begin is they get to the idea or the impression that you require that level of frustration or that level of excitement, that level of, well, now I'm going to do it. I'm finally going to do it. And if it doesn't continue that same level of energy, it's the motivation starts to drop off because they don't have that degree of that umph, that gumption, that wellspring of energy they feel like they had in the beginning. In some of the studies and also in my psych courses, we've gone over the reason in. They have statistical data on the effectiveness of motivational speakers. Now, that data has a very small fraction of success rate with motivational speakers. But what they did do, and I love this about the field of psychology, is they like to look at things to an umpteenth degree of detail. So where most people would take, okay, well, how effective is motivational speakers? Now they looked at a lot of the big ones, the ones that people are very aware of, like Tony Robbins, hell, even the Wolf of Wall Street, his name, Jordan Belford, people like that. They looked at their effects from their motivational seminars, and they find that the actual marked differences were so low that it was in the single digits. Best I recall, I believe it was actually 2%, maybe 3%. You may be off on that, but it was definitely in that single digit category. Now you'd think if 1,000 people go to it, if you get a handful of individuals that do make differences in their lives, why? Why did those individuals make differences in their life? And what psychology has done and sociology, as they're doing the studies into this to why people are actually coming out with that type of response, they're looking at, okay, you were fired up, you were excited about this. On a motivational level, where would you put your motivation? And they gave scale values, and the motivation was really high, but they also kept in touch with this study so that they could find out exactly how long before actions were taken and goals were starting to be realized. And they found that fewer people were actually achieving those goals. And again, that would be in the low end of the single digits. Those individuals, the reasons why so many people really like it is because motivational seminars get people really excited and they get attached or addicted to that excitement. But in psychology specifically, they talk about a structuring method called scaffolding. And what scaffolding is where you have the ability yourself to support somebody else in establishing their goal. You build up with them the structure necessary to facilitate the goal, and you start slowly removing yourself and your efforts as you continue to push the other person up or make sure that they have a tried and true method that helps them be successful. And you continue to pull yourself away over time as they continue to facilitate the areas that you were supporting. And before you know it, you're completely no longer required for that system, that situation, or that system of requirement or goal achievement. And the person is self-sustaining. In motivational seminars, they can offer those things to a degree, and they do often do that, but in advanced courses. Now, it doesn't necessarily facilitate all of the opportunities, but it does continue to build steps into that scaffolding process. Some of them, not all of them, are structured that way, so it's not like all of them abide by the same rules. Everybody can run their company however they want, to obviously legal degrees. So with that, this is one of the reasons why when people get started on a goal, they get really fired up. It may be an event in your life that has you so frustrated that you're finally tired of dealing with whatever it is, and now you step forward to make a change. this can be like a place where you start the process of change, but because you don't have a scaffolding mechanism around you that supports you, you're relying on that raw energy of frustration to facilitate all of that to get to the goal. Now, the bigger issues that people deal with this is that they get really inspired, or whatever method that's inspiring them, but then they deflate over time because where they run into things that are necessary in order to facilitate the goal, they have a lacking of knowledge or a lacking of experience. They may have book knowledge but not life experience. They may have life experience but not necessarily enough of the book knowledge to navigate new terrain. So it's a marriage of the two is usually the better approach. Also having somebody who's tried and true, just like whenever some psychologists will go through their treatment methods, they will use scaffolding as a treatment method in order to facilitate the other person's abilities to achieve that level. And again, with scaffolding, they slowly pull themselves away. It's not necessarily slowly. They pull themselves away at the timelines that they feel is most valuable to help continue the person's process of development for independence. So it's a way of also reducing codependence. And this approach, what I would like to really highlight is where to start. A starter point is you take inventory of where you currently are. Where am I in this process? Now that I know where I am, I build up what I know that I can do, what I know that I can't do, and where my unseen variables are. So the areas of what might I not know that I don't know. And once you open that parameter, that it's basically kind of like Pandora's box. But once you open that, now you have a new state of being open to some more, right? So that you can at least not be overly surprised by new variables. Where if you don't think about that, I don't know what I don't know, blind spots typically surprise you more and may actually make you retreat or give up altogether. Retreating isn't necessarily negative. It's just recollecting yourself. And that can very well be a benefit at times, so that you don't overexpose yourself and lose the resources you've worked really hard to build. Resources, external resources, internal, are also pieces that will be beneficial to understand. Resources external is how much money, if there's items, equipment, widgets, whatever that is, relationships you have with other people, those kind of things will all be external resources. Internal resources will be the level that you believe in yourself, that you know your capacity, and that it's predominantly going to be in how you feel about you. And the energy and structure that you have to abide by is all internal resourcing. So strategize. If you find that you're fired up over an issue, what happens over time, if you don't address frustration the right way, it changes the way you behave towards people, increases the likelihood of aggression. So if you have energy without guidance, frustration you typically will end up leading to that. Now, your aggression might be a proper stepping point to get where you want to be, but that would be you being aggressive towards your own behaviors that start to show up that stop you from doing something. Where it's like, okay, instead of putting on your tennis shoes and going out for a run, or not your tennis shoes, but your running shoes, and going out for a run, you may sit down and be like, I'm just tired. Been through enough today. I'm dealing with so much. I just don't want to do it. I feel lethargic, or I want to take a nap, or whatever it is. Or I want to just sit down, turn on the TV, and have a drink, whatever, and drown out my daily frustrations. And your aggression point that goes back towards yourself is the get up, get your shoes on, start walking, build towards the jog, build the jog into a run. And that's where that transition it's where aggression isn't necessarily a negative. You're internalizing it back to your behaviors of complacency and changing those complacent behaviors into something more successful for you. Everything is a building process. If you take the person in your life that you're using as the anchor of, or where you want to be, and you say, okay, I want to be like that person, and you continue to study that person's living situation, you really will do yourself justice to understand their starting points. So their starter point, understand where they were. Now, everyone's motivation is different. Some people, it's a relationship crisis of, partners, intimate partners. Other people, it may be relationship crisis of friendships. And I'm tired of living the way that I am. It could also be a relationship crisis with the company that you work for, the job that you have. It could be your relationship crisis with yourself in each one of those situations. In the same sense that the relationship crisis with yourself towards an intimate partner is, I'm placating. I'm not being honest about where I want to be. I'm settling for the situation because of familiarity or whatever. And you have that portion of that internal dialogue towards you about that. Then you have your business, like whatever company you're working for. You have that internal conversation of, am I being complacent? Am I not trying to move forward in my life? Will I regret not doing something? I already regret what I haven't done. I'm spending more energy complaining about what's going on, and I'm not putting enough of that energy into doing something different. Those are variables whenever it comes into self-actualization, because you want to self-actualize, not just externally actualize. Where you externally actualize is where, every person I date seems to be the same type of person. Every job I go to always seems to have the same way that they like to behave towards me. That's externalizing and putting the responsibility on somebody else. If you offset responsibility, you're taking your own ability to make those changes in your life away, because you're putting it on somebody else to do it. And you're blaming it on them that it hasn't happened. And that is weak. That's also something that will, over time, end up making you a long-term victim, because people are going to want to support you whenever you're feeling weak. And when they get in there and they start supporting you, it will kind of codify it, because you have a reward sequence built into the complaint. And now you have a reason not to change, because people come to your rescue. Every time somebody loans you money when you're in need, you could be very well fortifying that space. If that money is going towards progress in a legitimate way, not a survival way, there can be variables there too that you want to consider. Starter points are really important because you want to know where you're going next. But it helps you understand where you currently are. If you don't know where you are, you're building onto something else. Like you're just building onto an idea of where you are. Take inventory where you currently are. Understand where you want to be. Realize the resources necessary to stabilize where you are and to work towards where you want to be. Where you want to go will have fear. It'll have a lot of things, because where you want to go is almost always going to be someplace you haven't been. Even if you've been someplace similar before, getting there now, you're going to want to do things different in order to sustain it. So if you've made a lot of money at one point in time or had a very successful company and you lost it for whatever reason, where you wanting to get back there is a place that you really don't want to get back to, specifically in the sense that you don't want to repeat the same mistakes. So therefore, if you don't repeat the same mistakes and you've changed the way that you're going to do it, you're not going back where you were. You're going back to something similar, but you need to audit yourself along the way so that you better understand how to behave in those environments. So that's this entire process. Create a clarity about your starting points at your starter point. Now, there's checkpoints along the way, so you know where you are, and you also get a direct feedback from using these tools to make sure that you're at least more likely to be in the right direction. If you go down the wrong direction towards your goal, there's not a wrong thing about that necessarily. It could be you need the lesson in order to offset it in the future whenever you gain more momentum or you continue that process again. So, better starter points. Really look at where you currently are. Take inventory to it, because the only way your life is going to change is going to be by doing something to make it change. Being that we're in a system the way that it is in the United States, we do have a capitalistic system and a democracy. You have the ability to make the life that you want. If you buy into somebody else's excuse that you can't because of your race, because of your gender, because of your preferences, whatever your preferences may be, from sexual to other alternative lifestyle things, whatever that might be, you don't want to buy into those excuses, because those excuses or those gripes will have destinations that are not yours. They're part of the movement's destination, and you may not necessarily agree on where it ends versus where it is right now. You might agree with it. The better point that I have for all of us is focus on where you are, where you know you want to be, and start that journey and realize who's going to help you along the way and who you can contribute to theirs along the way. So motivation is wonderful. How to develop motivation is interesting. No one can motivate you. You can only motivate yourself, but they can give you a story that it makes you feel motivated. Now, being overly motivated and being the bull of change in your life, or this animal of absolute energy, I'm done with this thing. that can have a destination of fizzling out, and you're back to dealing with that thing again. Because if you expect the same level of reward that you have in the very beginning, when your energies are high, you're really, really motivated for change, a month later, are you still in that same place? And what energy did you use to sustain that place if you did? So are you using aggression to sustain that place? Because if you would use aggression for too long, it'll start changing your relationships with other people if it's a new manifestation of aggression. Now, if you're jealous or upset that you don't have the relationships other people have, you want to look at also the energy that's helped you get to where you are. If you stay in a state of consistent aggression, you're likely going to be envying people that don't have to be aggressive in order to have the result. And you can further feed that animal, that beast of aggression, if you want, by simply saying, well, they have it because of these privileges. And a lot of times what you are looking at and calling a privilege is usually more, there's a level of work that you're unaware of that has taken place. Luck is really something that people over-ascribe to. Luck is typically a series of hard work and effort. Now, timing has a role in it, but it's still, the element of timing might be the luck factor, but the work necessary to have what you want is the bigger distinction. How many people have you ever heard of that have won the lottery and that are absolutely in worse shape financially within the next 2 to 5 years? That's more common than not. There's a study to look up on that, by the way, that does show you that people that win the lottery typically are more likely to lose and then be in worse debt within the course of 2 to 5 years. Really interesting stuff, because you would think you have all that money all of a sudden, but it's all the behaviors you did before that helped you stop and keep from making all the money that you wanted are what really got exacerbated. A lot of those people, they go through a lot of different interesting and immature spending habits. So that's just not common. They don't really invest in the future, and they spend because there's such an amount that they have then. But that's something that we can explore further if you like at another time. Time being, clarity about where you are, where you want to go, and what emotions are you going to use to get there. If you're using frustration and hostility or anger, use that as a temporary fuel source. However temporary that might be is up to you and the way that you have built your life at this point. But my advice would be, don't rely on that as a consistent fuel source. And what I mean by a fuel source is the thing that continues to sustain you whenever you may not necessarily want to do it. It's something that gives you that momentum. So with that, just be aware of your current state and be aware of the state of where you're going. Know that you'll change in the process. It's just the way that this works. Now, I'm not speaking to you from a multi-millionaire level, but my hometown individuals, a great deal of them have told me that they do recognize me as being fairly successful. I personally don't necessarily see it that way, but I do say that, and that's by no means a brag at all. There's plenty more that I want to accomplish in this life. But the thing that I really want to accomplish in this life isn't so much the monetary piece. Obviously, I want to live as comfortable as possible. But the real thing that I'm really wanting to make a difference in and change in is being responsible for my society. Doing everything that I can to try to help increase inspiration so that maybe motivation's what lands for the other person. Structuring and strategizing what they're up to in such a way that I don't make them dependent on me, because I don't know the way to do all of your life's goals and the people that will listen to this. I don't know it. I do know that I'm building the success protocol for myself in order to make a difference. And I want to see our society raised up in a way that we don't need to create all of these divisions between each other and blame each other for all kinds of different shortcomings or shortfalls. And I really want to make it so that we can, we all can have more than what we need in order to survive in a happy and sustainable way. And what I mean by that is more of a lesson that we're learning from this current situation in 2020, early part of 2020, where we're relying more on the government to help us pay our bills, because a lot of us aren't really able to work the way that we did prior to this shutdown. Could you imagine in the future that you've built yourself so much that you can be comfortable even if you have to go 6 months or a year without being able to really generate much as far as finances goes? There's a lot to that. So as I pointed out earlier, there's a small amount of people that do these motivation seminars, or that go into these self-esteem or self-development approaches. What a lot of those, and I argued with, and also, and when I mean with, I don't mean against, my previous professor that talked about motivation seminars not being successful. And as soon as he talked about the statistics, I said the major piece that's missing in that is the scaffolding element. And he 100% agreed with that. He said he doesn't necessarily feel motivational seminars aren't successful or effective, because they're talking about effective to the point of successful. We both agree that it's a scaffolding piece that's missing. And a lot of times the people that are successful already have a good degree of self-development and relationships built to make it so that once they made up their mind about what they wanted to do, people were ready to support them. This series is about helping you develop what you need right now so that you are less scattered individually as a person, so you're not so scattered, so that you can create more precision in the direction you want to go in. I myself have struggled with that for some time, so I can definitely relate to that experience. And how do we build ourselves into the greater future that we want is one that we recognize what we need to get there and how to develop ourselves. Don't wait for the right person, be the right person. That's for dating, that's for business, that's just for life. Don't wait for that person, be that person. Mahatma Gandhi talked about that by saying, don't wait to change the world, be the person to change the world. Damn it, I messed that quote up. I apologize. And I just posted on that. A lot of thoughts. But don't wait for the right person, be the right person. And that does take time. Don't make yourself wrong that you're not going to be there tomorrow. Because the reality is you're getting closer to it tomorrow. If you take 1% every day, within 1 year, 365, or a leap year, 366 days, you'll end up getting, you'll be much different. It's not that you're a completely different person. You've just developed into the next level of who you are. We're going to do it one way or another. Complacency does its own thing to change us. And it does change us. And then there's the other pieces that regress us and make it harder for us to get to our goals. And then that's where we offset responsibility. That makes us harder to get to our goals, because people now want to try to avoid you because they feel the finger of blame may fall on you or fall on them. So they're going to want to reduce their influence. If you always blame other people, you're reducing your influence. And even if it's not to the person you're complaining to, that person may be happy that you're complaining because they're glad to see that somebody else has it worse than they do, or at least somebody else has it as worse as they perceive they do themselves, at the same level or worse. It could also be that they have a skill set necessary to help coddle you in that frustration. They may want something from you that's beyond just the current relationship. There's all kinds of things that when you offset responsibility, it's this murky minutia of inaction, and it drains you, and it enrolls the people around you that stick around. Predominantly, there's usually a give back to them. It's not to say the people that love you that stick around aren't there. Like, they just love you and accept you. They just may not necessarily have what they need in order to get you where you want to be. They're cheerleaders no matter which direction you go in. That really is love. They love you in your hard times. They love you in your good times. That's wonderful love, but it may not get you where you want to be. So with that, we're going to build each other up every single step of the way. That's what this maturity project is all about. It is developing ourselves. You will have plenty of places that I won't know about that are blind spots to me. There'll be things in language that we'll lose in communication because you may not necessarily understand fully what I'm saying, or I'm not going to understand where you are unless you comment back, engage with me, bring that into the sphere of opportunities. So with that, guys, I'm going to close out for now. And again, just to reiterate, whenever I say guys, I am actually referring to non-binary concepts. It's not a gender-specific element. It's a turn of phrase so that we don't have that issue come up on this channel. It's more about, I really just want to see the better for you, but sometimes you have to go through the hardship to get there. Don't think about the whole world needs to be hooked on happy. Hooked on happy is dangerous. I'll cover that in another video. Hooked on happy is something that I have a lot to say about, and it does come from the optimistic movement, the blind optimism, which I've written papers and made multiple videos on it. I'll make another one just so that we kind of keep that conversation a little fresh, because that's detrimental over time as well. If you think every time you're supposed to have a positive outcome, every time you have a negative, it's more impactful than if you didn't expect to have a positive. So there are definitely things to discuss there. With that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close this video up for now. My name is obviously it's Chad Everett Brochures. I am the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notifications for the channels that actually have that, so that you can be updated whenever I do release these. Set this up in a way that gives you more of the letting your mind create the right kind of insights that help you develop what you want in your life. Don't wait till the end of your life before you regret everything that you've done. Let's do something now to make changes so that we can get what we want, so we can experience it in this life in a way that you know you created it. It wasn't given to you. You earned it. There's a satisfaction in that. Share the video with anybody that you feel is specifically going to benefit from this, or that would benefit just overall, that has the tolerance to sit through a longer video. I'm not a big fan of short videos. I feel like they leave too much too much undiscovered, but yeah, I may change my mind on that in time. For right now, I personally like longer videos, and I usually avoid the really short ones whenever I listen to other people and watch other things. So, all right, guys, this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia again, and thank you so much for your time. We're all in this together. We're all going to make a difference with each other. So with that, with great love and admiration for anyone who's watching this, and for the future as well. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you real soon. Until then, think critically and really consider where you currently are.